Tonight, the final push, the presidential candidates in those battleground states fighting for every vote. Vice President Harris trying to hold the blue wall. Former President Trump trying to break through it. Trump drilling Harris on today's jobs report in Wisconsin. Harris zeroing in on Trump's rhetoric, hoping to win voters by drawing a sharp contrast. Will it work? The race still a jump ball the Friday before Election Day. So what do the polls show, and how much emphasis should we put into them? We break it down with two experts in the field. Also tonight, Trump versus Liz Cheney, the former president coming after the former Republican congresswoman, calling her, quote, a radical war hawk, and seeming to suggest she should be sent to war zones to see how she feels when guns are, quote, trained on her face. The comment setting off a firestorm. Now, the Arizona Attorney General's office is investigating the state of emergency in Orlando, people running for their lives as gunshots ring out on Halloween, a teen opening fire, killing at least 2 people and injuring several others. The security camera video of the moment police take down the suspect, you'll hear tonight from one of the victims. They say lightning never strikes twice, but that saying doesn't go for shark attacks. A Florida surfer bitten for a second time in the exact spot just years apart. We speak with him about the terrifying moment. Both of his feet were trapped in the shark's mouth and how he narrowly escaped. Marathon bomb scare, a suspicious device near the New York City Marathon finish line deemed a hoax. The heightened security as 50,000 runners prepare to take part in the annual race. And the medical students saving the life of their own teacher after he went into cardiac arrest. The doctor testing his student's knowledge while he was suffering from a heart attack. His message tonight in the hopes of saving others after he initially ignored his own symptoms. Plus, Collins Dictionary naming the word of the year, how brat made its way to the top of the 2024 list. Top story starts right now. Good evening. Tonight, just 4 days to go. The presidency still up for grabs as polls continue to show an extremely tight race. Vice President Harris and former President Trump with their final push to voters in the crucial blue wall states. Trump rallying today in Michigan, trying to win over the key voting blocks of Arab and Muslim Americans, while Harris also swings through the Midwest, her sole focus today in Wisconsin. Harris and Trump hosting dueling rallies in Milwaukee tonight, just a few miles apart. And there is good reason for the candidates to focus their final days on the Rust Belt. States like Wisconsin, a state of new polls there showing mixed results. One from CNN has Harris up 6 points, not within the margin of error, while a Marquette University poll has Harris up by just 1 point within the margin of error. So is this year's presidential contest really as tight as it seems? We'll speak with pollsters on the real state of the race. But tonight, it's former President Trump's new comments about one of his chief critics consuming both campaigns. At an event in Arizona, Trump seemed to suggest that former GOP Congresswoman Liz Cheney wouldn't be such a war hawk if she had, quote, 9 barrels shooting at her. Democrats quickly pouncing on the rhetoric, saying it supports violence, while Trump's campaign doubles down. And right now, more than 66 million Americans have already cast their ballots. That's roughly a third of those expected to vote in this election. NBC's chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander starts off our coverage tonight.
Tonight, Vice President Harris is hoping the road to the White House goes through Wisconsin.
We knock on doors, know how to text and call folks.
Immediately upon landing here, sharply criticizing former President Trump for his comments last night about former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
He has increased his violent rhetoric in great detail, suggested rifles should be trained on former Representative Liz Cheney. This must be disqualifying.
Trump in Arizona went after Cheney, arguing she would not favor war if she was sent to the front lines.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Cheney responding this morning, this is how dictators destroy free nations. They threaten those who speak against them with death, adding, we cannot entrust our country and our freedom to a petty, vindictive, cruel, unstable man who wants to be a tyrant. Cheney, who after January 6th vowed to stop Trump from returning to power and was defeated in her Republican primary, recently campaigned with Harris.
You cannot trust him. We've seen the man that he is.
Trump today offering a rare clarification, writing, "All I'm saying about Liz Cheney is that she is a war hawk and a dumb one at that."
I think that Liz Cheney is a disaster. All she wants to do is blow people up. If you ever put her into the field of battle, she'd be the first one to chicken out. She wouldn't fight. She'd chicken out so fast.
Harris's team argues Trump's inflammatory language about his political opponents crosses a line and fits a dangerous pattern.
His rhetoric has grown more extreme, and he is even less focused than before on the needs and the concerns and the challenges facing the American people.
Peter joins us tonight from Milwaukee. Peter, this is not your first rodeo. You've seen a lot of campaigns and a lot of candidates. Your eyes and ears out there, are you seeing anything in the closing days that you find surprising or definitely different from the rest of the campaign?
Well, just a little backdrop to this, Tom. First, the last presidential contest here in 2020 came down to just 20,000 votes out of more than 3 million cast. Of course, President Biden won then. Tonight, both candidates are here in Milwaukee, where they're going to be competing rallies just 7 miles apart. I'll tell you what I heard from a senior Harris advisor today, saying that according to their internal numbers right now, they say that in those key battleground states, they are leading by double digits among those late deciding voters, those people who have made up their mind in the course of the last week. They insist that's a function of that Trump rally at Madison Square Garden last week, the comedian's offensive comments about Puerto Rico. The Trump team, though, is very bullish about their chances right now. The bottom line is, Tom, frankly, this thing is a dead heat, as everybody has said. As soon as you feel like you're seeing a little traction for Harris, it seems like you may be seeing the same true for Trump. This is going to go down to the wire.
It's a great observation. Okay, Peter Alexander on the campaign trail. Former President Trump also back in the Midwest today, heading to battleground Michigan to win over Arab and Muslim voters, upset with the Biden-Harris administration's handling of Gaza. This as Vice President Harris blasts Trump for saying he'd let RFK Jr. make health care policy. Garrett Hake is on the trail in Warren, Michigan for us tonight.
Tonight, former President Trump working to crash through Democrats' so-called blue wall.
But this is all you need to know. Kamala, who's grossly incompetent, broke it. I will fix it. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it quickly.
Campaigning in battleground Michigan.
I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of criminals pouring into our country, and I will bring back the American dream.
Earlier, stopping at an Arab-owned restaurant in Dearborn.
Please let us welcome Mr. Donald J. Trump.
He's working to peel off Arab and Muslim voters upset over the Biden-Harris administration's handling of the war in the Mideast. It comes as Harris is amping up her attacks on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has endorsed Trump and was traveling with him today. Trump praising him.
How good was Bobby Kennedy Jr.? He's going to take care of women's health and men's health.
Harris slamming Trump today.
He has indicated that the person who would be in charge of health care for the American people is someone who has routinely promoted junk science and crazy conspiracy theories.
We pressed Trump about the vice president's criticism.
She just said that she thinks he's the last person in America that should be involved in health care planning. How do you respond?
Well, that's because they've lost him. He was a Democrat all his life, and they've lost him, and they're very unhappy about it. And I think they're very unhappy about their poll numbers because she is sinking like a dead ship. He is a great guy. I've known him a long time. And all he wants to do is very simple. He wants to make people healthier.
Though health experts have criticized Kennedy's debunked claims drawing links between vaccines and autism.
You're comfortable with his views on vaccines, Mr. President?
We'll be talking about a lot of things, but he's going to have a big role in health care, a very big role. He knows it better than anybody. He's got some views that I happen to agree with very strongly, and I have for a long time.
It comes as NBC News obtained video of House Speaker Mike Johnson talking about health care reform.
We're going to fix
No Obamacare?
No Obamacare. Yeah, the ACA is so deeply ingrained, we need massive reform.
Harris accusing Trump of wanting to end the Affordable Care Act.
Be very clear that among the stakes in this election are whether we continue with the Affordable Care Act or not.
Johnson telling NBC News he, quote, offered no such promise to end Obamacare and in fact acknowledged that the policy is deeply ingrained in our health care system. Trump firing back overnight.
She says, I want to end Obamacare, affordable health, okay? No, I never said that. If we got something better, I would do it. But if we got something better, I'd do it. But I never said I'm going to end it.
After Thursday's surprising stop in New Mexico to court Latinos, Trump will go to another non-traditional battleground state tomorrow, Virginia, which his campaign is hoping to put in play. Tom?
All right, Garrett Haake for us as well on the campaign trail. Garrett, we appreciate you. As we get closer and closer to Election Day and Election Night, we wanted to show you our map and our road to 270, right? And just a quick reminder, these are the states and how they ended up in 2020. The 7 you see, neither red nor blue, those are the battleground states. And a quick reminder, this is how it ended up in 2020. Biden won 6 of those 7 battleground states. But right now and into Election Day, the polls are getting tighter and tighter. So we wanted to talk to 2 fantastic pollsters about the way they're seeing this race and how it's going to break, possibly. So let's introduce them tonight. First up, political strategist and pollster Frank Luntz joins us. You might know him from the author of the bestseller Words That Work. Also, here's Democratic pollster Fernand Amadi. Guys, I thank you both for joining us now. Frank, I'm going to start with you. You've spent decades thinking about words and how they impact campaigns and they move people. Just 2 days ago, you predicted that President Biden's garbage gaffe would cost Kamala Harris the election. Now that President Trump is being hammered over his comments about Liz Cheney, does that change your calculus at all? Or do you think what President Biden did hurt the Harris campaign in a major way?
Well, let's be precise. What I said was that it could have a significant impact on the campaign. And right now, whatever any candidate says is going to affect how those final uncommitted voters, which are very few. The truth is, if you're undecided in this weekend, you're not going to vote because you don't like either candidate. And those who are still persuadable, it only represents 2%. But that's enough to affect Pennsylvania and Michigan and maybe even Wisconsin. So in the end, you have to give voters a reason to vote for you, not just against you. Some of the language that's come out of the Trump campaign, specifically the presidential candidate himself, is very hard to listen to. It's very divisive and very polarizing. And Biden saying what he did say is very problematic for Harris because now you don't have the differential. We're clearly too angry with each other, too willing to attack each other personally, too willing to unleash rhetoric that is not appropriate even in 2024. And frankly, I'm more nervous about the future than I am the present. I'm more afraid of how we bring the country together after this election than what's just going to happen over the next 96 hours. They both have to stop. Americans deserve better.
Frank, do you see anything, though, in the numbers that sways you one way or the other? Do you still think it's a complete toss-up?
I'm looking at turnout, right? In fact, I'm just writing a note as I'm speaking to you. What matters now is not the polling, it's the actual turnout. That in reality, if you're 3 points, 4 points ahead, but your voters aren't going to participate, it's irrelevant. So I'm looking at the early voting. I'm also looking at what happened in the registration numbers. And I think it'd be foolish for anyone to declare at this point that they know who's going to be elected president. And the 2 states I'm looking at, one of them is Pennsylvania, obviously, but the other one is Michigan. If either candidate wins both those states, they're going to be the next president.
Yeah, it's a good point. Fernand, I want to bring you in here. Frank just mentioned Pennsylvania. This is where it ended up in 2020. I want to talk to you specifically about sort of this I-222 corridor, right? We have about 600,000 eligible Latinos who can vote in Pennsylvania. A lot of them live in the counties that include Monroe County. They live in places like Northampton County, in places like Lehigh County, Allentown, Bethlehem, Reading, Pennsylvania. We had those comments over the weekend at the Madison Square Garden rally where that comedian said that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage in the ocean. How do you think that's going to affect those voters in Pennsylvania?
Well, Tom, it has absolutely galvanized the Puerto Rican community, certainly in Pennsylvania. And, you heard Frank earlier say that words have an impact and they have an effect. You bet your butt they do, especially in this case, because the reaction to the words, I think, is the real story here. Had the words been said, they were bad enough in and of itself when it came to the joke. But what happened is the reaction of folks like Nicky Jam, J-Lo, Bad Bunny, all of these individuals who are icons in the Puerto Rican community, it has set Puerto Rican social media on fire. Spanish language television is also on fire about this subject. So you have brought now something where every Puerto Rican, not just in Pennsylvania, by the way, but in Nevada, in Arizona, to the extent that there's a few thousand Puerto Ricans also in the state of Wisconsin and Michigan. This is now becoming a reflection on whether or not you are going to side with Donald Trump and his folks who made those comments, or if you're going to back Kamala Harris. So I think the Puerto Rican community is just on fire about this. It is having an impact, and that's why you've seen the desperate attempts by the Trump campaign to clean this up, whether it's the comments of Trump himself, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, and others to try and tamp it down. It's not working so far. And to the extent that there could be an 11th hour incident, I think this is the type of thing that could very well cost Trump the election, simply because in all of these states, and the polling confirms it, the margins are so critically close. If you have an extra 30, 40, 50,000 Puerto Ricans come out that may not have voted otherwise, or maybe had even been thinking Trump and are now all in for Harris, that's your margin of victory in those states, and it could cost Trump the election.
Staying on Pennsylvania now, because it's going to be so critical. You're talking about 19 electoral votes. The Harris campaign is out with their final ad in Pennsylvania, and it's somewhat interesting. I want to play a portion for our viewers, but I want to get your guys' take on it because it's a little different. Let's play it. So this is just B-roll, I'm being told. We don't have the actual audio, but the image that you see here, which is interesting, it's Kamala Harris right side by side with the governor there, Josh Shapiro. Very, very popular in the state of Pennsylvania. Somebody she didn't pick to be her running mate. Frank, when you see that image, is she trying to sort of telegraph an image to Pennsylvanians? I don't want to say it's deceiving, but it almost feels like Shapiro is the running mate, not Tim Walz.
Well, he's the most popular politician in all of Pennsylvania. He's the most popular governor. And frankly, I think she would have been better suited for choosing him as her running mate than the governor of Minnesota. Minnesota's not up for grabs. Pennsylvania is. But I want to say to my colleague, my Democratic colleague, that the point that he's made is a good one. It's a fair one. But if you're agitated and you're part of the Puerto Rican community, imagine how you feel when the current president refers to your supporters as garbage. I agree that the Puerto Rican comment from a comedian was stupid and really resentful. But if that's the case, and you're calling all the supporters of your opponent garbage, if Puerto Rico is going to have that impact, then I wonder what kind of impact Biden's comment, and I know he admitted that it's a gaffe, but I wonder the impact that that's going to have, because Trump is mentioning it in every rally, in every event. And I think that it reminds me of the deplorable comment from Hillary Clinton back in 2016, and we know the impact that had.
Well, let me just respond to that really quickly by saying I think Frank would be absolutely right, and Donald Trump would be winning this election if his opponent were Joe Biden. Problematically, though, for Donald Trump, his opponent is not Joe Biden, it's Kamala Harris, who, by the way, the day after that comment that was ill-timed and ill-said by President Biden, she immediately said there's no place anywhere in American life for these type of comments. So I think quickly was able to clean that up. By contrast, to this moment, as we speak right now, Donald Trump has not apologized for those comments at that hate rally in Madison Square Garden. And you even have Puerto Rican influencers and surrogates saying, hey, Donald, it's too late. You had your chance to clean it up. You let it go because your style is not to apologize. And now you're going to pay the bill when the Puerto Rican community takes out the, quote, trash, which is the meme now that's out there on November 5th election
Guys,
day.
I want to get your take on something here. The closing polling across the battlegrounds, right? Going back to 2020, and we'll put this up on the screen for our viewers here. Both 538 and Real Clear Politics polling average overestimated Biden's support in key battlegrounds like Michigan and Wisconsin. We know pollsters have tweaked their methods since 2020. And again, I don't ever want to give too much pressure or too much hate towards pollsters because they have a very tough job and it's not easy to poll these days anymore. But there seems to be a pattern there, right, where Trump voters are sometimes underpolled. Fernand, I'll start with you. Do you think the Trump voter is underpolled this time around? And if that were true, he would be in a much better spot than he was even in 2020.
No, Tom, I don't think that's the case. First off, there's something going on in the polling this time around in this presidential cycle. It wasn't as pronounced in 2020, 4 years ago. We saw signs of it in the 2022 cycle when a lot of folks, including Frank, said there was going to be this massive red wave that never materialized because a lot of the polling was weaponized. Not all of them. There's a lot of good, independent, trustworthy, incredible polls out there. But by contrast, there are a lot of fly-by-night polling operations at your very dubious background, giving these numbers that just are at odds with what the independent polls are saying, showing a Trump lead well beyond the margin of error, well beyond what the independent polls are saying. I think that's influencing the averages in a way that is distorting the reality. By contrast, what we have seen over the last 72 hours, over the last week, there has been movement towards Kamala Harris. And the polls have consistently suggested, whether it's 2, 3, 1, or as many as 4 points, she is leading the race nationally. She seems to be ahead in a couple of the key battleground states, even in the average of the independent credible polls. And to the extent states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia, it does seem to be tied there. But right now, I would much rather be in the Harris campaign's position based on the data we're seeing today, Friday night, as opposed to where we were 2 and 3 weeks ago.
Frank, what do you say to that?
She could have won this race in a very simple way by telling voters in the town halls and the live appearances when you had voters in front of you what you're going to do in the first hour, in the first day, in the first week, in the first month. She had every opportunity to focus on where she stands and specifically what's she going to do, not what her priorities are, but what she's actually going to get done. And she didn't do it. And she's being punished for that. I feel so blessed that I don't have to defend the polling industry. That I don't have to defend any kind of partisanship, because it's one of the things I've really come to resent right now, that people will give you a line and you can tell exactly who they're working for and exactly who they support. And a pollster should not be clear about that. A pollster should speak the data and speak the truth, because the American people deserve that. And the problem is that's not happening right now, and I think the industry is going to get a black eye once again after Tuesday for getting it wrong.
All right, we're going to have to see. I want to talk about one more state before we let you guys go, the state of Nevada here, because we do have some early voting and some stats out of Nevada. This is the way it ended up in 2020. You can see, obviously, Joe Biden won that state. Fernand, right now, Nevada has the highest unemployment in the entire country, right? It is over 5% in Nevada. We've seen those early vote numbers. Do Democrats have to be worried with sort of the breakdown of the early vote, because Republicans are showing up to vote earlier in larger quantities than they did 4 years ago?
Tom, I think they do. Nevada is one of those states where if you're a Democrat right now looking at it, you have to be concerned, not just because of the strong Republican performance in early vote, but especially where they're coming from. They're coming from a lot of rural areas, and I think that's supercharging and turbo-powering why that Republican advantage looks to be significant now. And a lot of Nevada watchers are thinking about this. The one fallback, though, that I think you got to feel a little bit better about if you are a Democrat, by contrast, is the Reid machine that has now outlived even Harry Reid is still very much in play, and that was always going to be an election day turnout operation. These races in Nevada are never decided by more than a percentage point or two, sometimes by as few as 10, 20, 30,000 votes. So if the Democrats can focus and target where they have a much stronger get-out-the-vote operation than Trump does in the state of Nevada, that's where I think they can cut into this early vote lead that the Republicans clearly have right now in Nevada.
Frank, last question here. Could this come down to Nevada and 6 electoral votes?
Yes, and I'll throw something in out of fairness, too, which is Wisconsin, which has been considered a swing state that is too close to call. I think that Harris has the advantage there, and that Republicans should be nervous about their turnout operation, because Democrats, the vote does seem to be moving. So you got some of these states that are beginning to settle themselves. Any one of them could be the swing state. I still believe that Michigan, because we don't know what the turnout's going to be there at all, those 100,000 Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, are very angry with both candidates, and some people may not vote. And that is going to be critical. And so Pennsylvania and Michigan are going to be the decider. And I don't think we're going to know Tuesday night or Wednesday night. or even Thursday night. I think that this election is going to take several days to determine. And let's make sure that everyone is peaceful and patient so they can do this count accurately. And once again, Americans can trust their election results.
Frank Luntz, Fernando Armand, we thank you so much for joining Top Story tonight. We're going to turn now to some other news. The deadly Halloween shooting in downtown Orlando. Gunshots ringing out during celebrations, leaving at least 2 people dead. Security cam video capturing the terrifying moments. The city now under a state of emergency. Plus, the trial date just announced for New York City Mayor Eric Adams, the historic case as the mayor faces corruption and bribery charges. And twice bitten, a Florida surfer sits down with Top Story after he was attacked by a shark for a second time. Stay with us. We're back now with a wild story out of Florida. A former competitive surfer surviving a shark attack just north of West Palm Beach. But incredibly, this isn't his first shark bite. That surfer was attacked on the very same beach 11 years ago when he was just 16 years old. Cole Tashman and his girlfriend Anna Pesci, who witnessed the incident from the shore, join us now here on Top Story. Guys, first off, thanks so much for joining us. Cole, I know you've been recovering. Talk to us about the moment you were bit this second time.
Yeah, so basically what happened was the second time, Anna here, obviously, she was filming, and I was out there with my 2 buddies, Hunter Rowland and Zach Piccola, who owns iTowel Bowls, a great food truck. And yeah, we were out there, and about 10 minutes into our session, I was paddling, laying flat, feet behind the board, and he came up behind me and bit. And yeah, that was about it. He bit me. I screamed, I'm bit, I'm bit. And the boys instantly went into danger. It was Cole, a really amazing thing.
I know you've been attacked before. What does it feel like when that shark sort of grabs both your feet?
It's a common misconception that a lot of people think that they grab and hold on to you. They don't. Their teeth are so sharp, it's like razors. They just go right through you, so it just pulls off of you. You know, they don't really come back around for a second bite. Luckily enough, there was a wave right there. I got to catch it in. My buddies were on the wave right behind me. And, yeah, she was up there filming.
I know. We have a clip of that. Let's run that right now.
I got it! What?
So, Anna, you were saying, yeah, I got you. I got the wave you caught, but that's not what your husband was talking about, right?
Yeah, I couldn't hear him at the moment when, like in the video, you hear it clear. I got bit, but I couldn't hear it on the second floor balcony. And then once I really realized he got bit, I was like, oh my God, I just grabbed a towel and ran downstairs to go find him.
Were you worried, or did you know he was okay?
No, I was so worried because I had no idea what to expect or where he was bit. I couldn't tell from when he screamed, so I had no idea until, I went and saw him and saw what condition he was in.
Cole, we have some photos of your wounds. Some of them are too graphic, if you will, for our viewers, so we've kind of blurred them out. Walk us through what you suffered and what exactly happened to your feet.
Yeah, so basically on the way to the hospital, you know, she was smacking me in the face. and my buddy was dumping water on my head. And when I got there, I got to see them. And it was pretty extensive, 93 stitches, 10 staples. And thank you to Dr. Borrego down at St. Mary's. What a guy. He's the shark bite guru, apparently. So
were you passed
big shout out to him.
Because you were bleeding so much?
I almost got there, and thanks to her and my buddy Zach, I didn't.
And so the weird part about this story, as you know, is that you were attacked twice. You're either the luckiest person for surviving 2 shark attacks or the most unlucky, depending on how you look at it. What happened when you were 16?
So when I was 16, I was in the same exact spot, same area, about waist-deep water. Was walking out to go surf. We were actually doing a fundraiser that time, and this time we were actually mourning a friend, so it's kind of funny. It was both for purpose. And I was waist-deep water, little reef pup, 4 foot, 5 foot black tip shark came up and hit me on the hand right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but yeah, he hit me, and it was only 12 stitches, thank God. So this is a whole different ballpark. Are you done surfing, or are you gonna get back out there? Oh man, I love that question. Yeah, no way. I'm totally back out there. No worries at all. And you know, big shout out to Ohana Surf Shop for always being there for me through the last fight and this fight. you know, they're my fundraising guys and their family. So thank you guys so much.
You know, I got to think that you've sort of meditated on this a little bit, right? Because shark attacks are rare. I know as surfers who go out there a lot, you guys probably see a lot. If you're on the water, you're sort of used to this. But people are going to watch this and be like, wow, this is so strange. Have you sort of meditated on that you got attacked twice, how rare that is?
I mean, she can probably tell you a little bit more on that. What do you think? Do you think I've meditated on it or not?
Probably not. He's going to keep going out there, and I mean, it happens. He's a surfer. He's in their territory. So
yeah, it's a lifestyle, man. Pretty much, it's something I'll never quit and I'll never stop doing, and it's like the worst, best addiction of your life, if I could say that as an impact statement or so.
Cole, what's your message to all the sharks out there?
I love you guys. Stoked to meet you.
Leave you alone, probably, right?
No, but seriously, on another note, if I could say one thing, you know, just definitely take it as don't surf alone and be with a buddy out there. Be smart and know what you're doing. And, you know, luckily we were such smart people, we could make a tourniquet so quick and do what we had to do to get to the hospital. But it's not that case in a lot of times. So stay safe out there, you know.
Cole Tashman, Anna Pesci, we thank you for your time talking to us tonight. I'm glad you're fine. If you get bit again, though, I think we definitely have to talk. Anyways, have a great weekend, all right?
Awesome. I think she'll kill me before I get bit again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Have a great one.
Yeah, okay, right. When we come back, the suspicious device found near the finish line of the New York City Marathon. A bomb squad called in after the device was spotted on a picnic table in Central Park. What authorities are saying about that scare just 2 days before the race. Stay with us. All right, we start with Newsfeed with breaking news. Former Louisville police detective that was charged in the Breonna Taylor shooting case partially acquitted. A jury finding Brett Hankinson not guilty of violating the civil rights of Taylor's 3 neighbors during the 2020 police raid that killed her. We are still waiting to find out if they will continue to deliberate on the count related to Taylor, but they sent a note to the judge saying that they were deadlocked. Okay, a bomb squad called into New York City's Central Park after a suspicious device was found near the marathon's finish line. The device, which looks similar to a stun grenade found on a picnic table early this morning, authorities ultimately determined it was a fake or a hoax device that does not pose a threat. More than 50,000 runners are expected to race in the marathon on Sunday. Also in New York City, a federal judge setting Mayor Eric Adams' trial date for April 21st, 2025. Adams pleaded not guilty in September to corruption and bribery charges for allegedly accepting expensive gifts from Turkish nationals, among others. Adams' lawyers had pressed for a March trial date, arguing the proceedings could interfere with the June Democratic primary. Okay, now to the state of emergency in Orlando after a deadly shooting in downtown Orlando on Halloween. At least 2 people were killed and 7 injured early this morning after a gunman opened fire into a crowd. Police arresting a 17-year-old suspect at the scene. A curfew is in place tonight. NBC's Jesse Kirsch has the details.
From coast to coast, tonight multiple communities are dealing with a very real Halloween scare, deadly shootings.
Gunshot victim.
In Orlando, Florida, the mayor issuing a local state of emergency and announcing a curfew after police say a teenager opened fire overnight on a downtown packed with tens of thousands of people. This police-edited video shows the suspect walking through the crowd, appearing to turn back toward a blurred individual before raising a gun and firing.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground right now!
Police tackling the alleged shooter within minutes. In total, 8 people were shot, 2 killed, according to investigators. Among the survivors, 20-year-old Anthony Berry, who says a bullet grazed his head.
What do you think happens if you didn't crouch?
We wouldn't have this interview. It's not even an if, it's a definite fact.
Meanwhile, Colorado police say a Denver area house party shooting left 3 people dead. And in Washington state, authorities say someone in a Halloween-type mask shot and killed 1 person at the Vancouver Mall. No one is in custody from either attack.
But here in Orlando, police say they do have the 17-year-old suspect in custody. He now faces numerous charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder with a firearm. Tom?
Time now for Top Stories Global Watch and a check of what else is happening around the world. We start with a deadly factory fire in Indonesia. Drone video shows the thick black smoke billowing into the air as flames rip through a cooking oil factory near Jakarta. At least 8 people were killed and several others injured. Roads around that factory remain closed at this time. Local authorities are investigating. Police in Canada busting what they called a, quote, drug super lab. Authorities saying they seized more than 54 kilograms of fentanyl, 390 kilograms of methamphetamine, I should say, along with several other drugs and chemicals to make them. An arsenal of weapons was also found. Police believe the drug lab in British Columbia is at the center of a criminal operation supplying drugs inside the U.S. and internationally. And Scotland's Collins Dictionary crowning brat as their word of the year. The dictionary, which is published in Glasgow, saying the word sparked a, quote, cultural phenomenon that has resonated with people globally. That cultural movement coming after British artist Charlie XCX released her 6th studio album. The title Brat, along with a signature green color, was seen everywhere from memes and even Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. All right, coming up next, when the students become the saviors, an ER doctor rushed to the hospital after going into cardiac arrest. The people who helped save his life. Students who he helped train. That incredible story next. We are back now with the incredible story of a Minnesota doctor known for teaching others how to respond in a crisis. He then found himself on the other side of an emergency situation. To his surprise, the people who came to save him were a few familiar faces. A full circle moment captured on video as his former students took the reins. Adrian Broaddus has this story.
Again? Go. Matthew Steinkritzer is testing the condition of his heart.
Go. Good.
Excellent job. After ignoring symptoms, the Mayo Clinic emergency room doctor had his own crisis on Memorial Day.
I nearly died. I had a big heart attack, so I lost heart muscle.
His wife, Andrea, called 911.
We've certainly done ECG training with Doc Matt.
And the paramedics who responded, familiar faces, Justin Carroll and Manny Quinones.
Doc Matt, I said, I know that you want to help with all this, but now it's time for you to be a patient. This is the biggest opportunity for you to critique what you've been teaching us.
Manny and Justin, former students Dr. Matt trained, saved his life.
Let me tell you, when you're really worried you're dying, seeing those familiar faces, like, that was the first time I knew I was going to be okay.
His wife recorded this cell phone video showing the medics working under pressure to save their former teacher and friend.
What made you hit record on your cell phone?
He didn't tell me to, but I know he would have loved it because he trains them. I just kind of knew that he was going to want to see a couple pictures of what was going on.
The training continued on the way to his very own emergency room.
While we're transporting him, he asked me if the pads were on him. And that to me was like, oh boy, he as a patient can feel that this is bad because he's asking me with his knowledge if the defibrillator pads are on his chest. And I said no, and he said put them on me.
Post-heart surgery and now home recovering, Dr. Matt says don't delay seeing your doctor.
Don't be like me. There may not be a next week, right? Don't try and diagnose yourself. Don't underestimate or minimize your symptoms. Doesn't mean you have to rush to the ER, but you shouldn't completely blow it off like I did.
Tonight, his heart flowing with gratitude.
I'm genuinely blessed to still be alive. I know I actually should have died that day.
Adrian Broaddus, NBC News, Rochester, Minnesota.
All right, that does it for us tonight. We thank you so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.